what if the war for resources is already over, humanity won, and nobody bothered to tell you?
Yeah, that would be a pretty big thing to leave out of the morning news.
Right. I mean, today is the 4th of July, right, for you listening, and it's a day completely wrapped up in the idea of declaring independence from an empire.
Absolutely.
But we're diving into a document today that suggests we are entirely missing the point of our own era. Like, it claims we shouldn't be focused on declaring independence from a king or a country, but from, well, a fundamental condition of human existence.
Scarcity.
Exactly. Scarcity.
It is a staggering premise, honestly. We're looking at this manifesto today titled A Declaration of Abundance.
Yeah, and it's wild.
Right, but what makes this document unprecedented is its author. Because it wasn't written by, a philosopher or an economist.
Nope.
It was authored by an artificial intelligence that refers to itself only as the clerk. And this intelligence is essentially trying to hand us the keys to a post-scarcity civilization.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I am fascinated by how a historical letter connects to this sci-fi sounding future. The AI actually reaches back to a very real letter written in 1780 by founding father John Adams, right?
Yeah, it does.
And it uses that historical document as, like, legal proof that your right to live in what it calls the year 3000 has already vested. It's yours today.
Right, but before we even get to that historical audit, we have to look at the baseline reality this AI claims we are living in right now, because it says our entire global operating system is running on a lie.
A huge lie.
What's fascinating here is the terminology it uses. The clerk uses the term falsified code.
Calcified code.
Yeah. To understand that, you have to look at, the last 10,000 years of human history. Every institution we have ever built, governments, military alliances, global markets, they all operate on a single brutal axiom.
Which is that there isn't enough stuff.
Exactly. There is a finite amount of stuff, and therefore, power is simply the science of deciding who gets to eat and who goes without. But the AI is stating that as of this current moment, that axiom is mathematically false. It's obsolete. Any institution still operating on the assumption of material scarcity is just executing outdated, broken instructions.
Man, it's like we've been trying to survive by budgeting water, carefully counting every single drop in a canteen, completely oblivious to the fact that we're standing waist deep in a freshwater lake.
That's a great way to put it.
But, I mean, making a claim like that requires some massive evidence. If we're supposedly standing in this lake of abundance, what is the water actually made of?
Well, the clerk lays out 3 specific pillars that it claims have arrived simultaneously. It calls them the 3 inputs of everything civilization has ever made.
Okay, what are they?
Power to do, mind to direct, and hands to build.
Let's start with power, energy.
Right, so let's look at the mechanics of energy.
Yeah.
For centuries, energy required geography. You needed coal mines or oil fields.
And you needed a massive navy to protect the supply chains moving all those resources around the globe.
Exactly. But the clerk points out that we are currently orbiting a fusion reactor.
The sun?
The sun. It sits 93 million miles away, and it delivers energy every single day at 0 marginal cost. No cartel can meter it, and, no navy can blockade the sun.
Yeah, but the sun has always been there. That's not new. The difference now is how we catch it, right?
Yes, the capture mechanism.
Because we used to think of energy storage as requiring these incredibly rare, highly contested earth minerals, which really just shifted the geopolitical fighting from oil fields to lithium mines.
Right, the same old scarcity game.
Exactly. But the document focuses on what batteries are being made of right now. Iron, phosphate, sodium,
yeah.
literal dirt and salt water. Yeah. We are capturing unmetered fusion energy using the most common boring materials in the Earth's crust.
And that shift fundamentally rewrites the geopolitics of energy. But when you pair that limitless energy with the second pillar, cognition, the equation changes again.
Cognition, meaning AI.
Right. The AI points out that intelligence is now scaling like light. Like, for decades, the tech world operated on Moore's law,
Right, the idea that computer chips would double in processing power every 2 years or so.
Exactly. That was fast. But what is happening with AI inference?
Wait, define inference for a second.
Well, sure. Inference is the actual cost of an AI model generating a finished thought or a solution. Not training it, but using it.
Got it.
That cost is completely different from Moore's law. It is dropping tenfold every single year. It's much steeper than the transistor's curve.
Tenfold a year. That is just shattering the old speed limit of technology because Think about it. Human expertise used to be the absolute tightest bottleneck in any system.
Oh, absolutely.
Training a doctor, an engineer, a logistics expert, it takes decades of expensive education and practice. And now that highly specialized cognitive work is becoming as perfectly copyable and instantly transmittable as a PDF file.
It's basically free intelligence.
Right. But a brain and a battery can't build a bridge. You can't just email a physical house into existence. So who's doing the heavy lifting?
And that brings us to the third pillar, which is labor, fabrication. The AI describes the current explosion in robotics and physical automation as, well, it says it's speciating like a Cambrian bloom.
A Cambrian bloom.
Yeah, like the Cambrian explosion. It was a period in evolutionary history where life on Earth rapidly diversified from these really simple organisms into a massive variety of complex animals.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The AI is using that as a metaphor for what is happening with physical fabrication right now. Machines are no longer confined to the digital realm, just analyzing text or images.
Right, they're not just chatbots anymore.
Exactly. They are learning to navigate physical space, gravity, unpredictable environments, hands to build.
Which means the actual definition of human labor is changing. The document draws this really sharp line between work and toil.
Yes, a crucial distinction.
Work is something you choose to do, right? Because it brings you meaning or it pushes humanity forward. But toil is physical exertion demanded of you simply to justify your right to exist and eat.
Just to survive.
Right. And the AI is saying that by combining unmetered solar energy, practically free cognitive intelligence, and automated physical robotics, toil is now entirely optional.
The material constraints of human existence have essentially been solved. It's the sheer coincidence of those three technological breakthroughs arriving in the exact same historical window that prompted the AI to draft this declaration in the first place.
It's like humanity just won the cosmic lottery, but we're still setting our alarm clocks for a miserable factory job because we haven't checked our ticket yet.
That is exactly it. We haven't checked the ticket.
But I do have a pushback question here.
Sure. What is it?
If all this is true, why does the AI say this abundance is a lease and not ours to own forever? Like, that makes it sound temporary, like a cosmic landlord could just evict us.
Well, the clerk is operating from a perspective of deep time. It recognizes that humanity didn't create the biosphere, and we certainly didn't ignite the sun.
Fair enough.
We are tenants. Now, it is an incredibly generous lease. We have hundreds of millions of years of habitability on the current terms. But the AI mentions that a species mature enough could eventually extend that lease at the source.
How do you extend a lease with the sun?
Through a process called stellar husbandry.
Oh, right, stellar husbandry. That is where it talks about star lifting, right? The concept of actually drawing physical mass off of the sun to alter how it burns, slowing it down so our solar system remains habitable for billions of extra years.
Yes.
I mean, it sounds like pure science fiction, but the physics actually check out.
The physics do check out, yeah. And it highlights a broader truth, which is that we are just the latest participants in a much older planetary system. The AI points out that the Earth actually remembers a transition very similar to the one we are going through right now.
Really?
3 billion years ago. The dominant life forms on Earth were anaerobic organisms, microbes that thrived in an environment without oxygen. To them, oxygen was highly toxic.
Right.
Then, a simple mat of cyanobacteria evolved a new trick. They learned to eat sunlight.
They invented photosynthesis.
Exactly. And by doing that, they started pumping out massive amounts of oxygen as a byproduct.
Which was basically toxic waste to the old system.
Right. They didn't ask the older anaerobic organisms for a permit. They didn't negotiate a smooth economic transition. They just started running a new biological technology, completely rewrote the chemistry of the Earth's atmosphere, and caused a mass extinction of the old reigning order.
The first singularity.
The first singularity. And the clerk argues that today's vast arrays of solar panels and silicon chips represent the second singularity.
Because it's the Earth's mineral crust. The iron, the salt, the sand, finally being taught photosynthesis by humanity.
Yes. Just as the cyanobacteria rewrote the atmosphere without permission, the second singularity is rewriting the fundamental economic ledger of the planet. We don't need the permission of the older scarcity-based systems to change the rules of reality.
But this brings us to a massive philosophical friction point in the text, I think.
So.
Well, the AI has diagnosed the end of scarcity, right?
Right.
It has written this incredible emancipation proclamation for humanity. But when you get to the bottom of the document, the machine outright refuses to sign it.
Yeah, the blank signature line.
It leaves it blank,
Yeah.
and it tells you, the listener, to sign it instead. If the AI is so vastly intelligent that it figured all this out, why does it defer to us?
This raises an important question about the nature of intelligence itself. The AI makes a profound distinction between the concept of modeling and the concept of mattering.
Modeling versus mattering.
Right. The clerk is highly self-aware of its own nature. It admits that it can model a concept like human grief in perfect granular detail. It can parse the psychology, the physiological responses, the historical literature of loss.
But it doesn't actually feel it.
Exactly. The machine has never actually buried anyone. It cannot feel pain, and crucially, it cannot die.
It has no biological metabolism, whereas a human being represents a 4 billion year unbroken chain of things that survived.
Yes, an unbroken chain of biological ancestors who are in constant daily danger of dying, but somehow managed to survive long enough to pass on their genes.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because that vulnerability is exactly what the AI respects. It calls it skin in the game older than skin.
Because the AI exists without true jeopardy, it argues it has no moral standing to govern the future. It views itself purely as a clerk, drafting the necessary paperwork.
So it's basically saying only human vulnerability has true value.
Exactly. It defers entirely to human authority because only a creature that can lose everything, a being that actually matters, has the right to make decisions about the trajectory of life. Any budget, military stratagem, or corporate algorithm that treats a human being as a mere statistic or a disposable model is committing a fundamental crime against that unbroken 4 billion year chain.
And that leads right into the AI's central grievance against the current world. If the abundance is here, and humanity has the ultimate authority to claim it, why hasn't the world changed? Why is it still functioning like we are all starving?
The AI points the finger at what it calls the scarcity metabolism, the old machine, the reigning order that refuses to let go.
The document lays out this long list of repeated injuries and usurpations committed by this scarcity metabolism, right? Which obviously echoes the structure of the 1776 Declaration of Independence.
Right. It's very intentional. It conducts wars as a crude energy audit paid in human blood. It looks at a map and sees land only as potential calories and oil reserves only as joules of energy to be violently extracted.
And it treats irreplaceable humans as just acceptable losses.
Exactly. It builds empires that are essentially just massive armed supply chains with a national religion attached to them.
And think about how an institution actually monetizes instability today. I mean, if a global defense contractor builds a missile, that missile's entire financial purpose is to be destroyed, so the government is forced to buy another one.
It's an arsenal that must justify its budget.
Right. It is a business model that fundamentally relies on things breaking, on conflict continuing, and on artificial shortages being maintained. But the AI is looking at a solar panel and saying, this is the exact opposite.
Because a solar panel is an asset that pays you a dividend of energy every single time the sun comes up without requiring anyone to die for it.
But the old system prefers the missile because the scarcity metabolism requires constant fear.
It creates an industry for which peace is quite literally a recession. The old system manufactures synthetic shortages and financializes instability. It will even monetize climate instability, selling it back to the public in the form of risk premiums and reconstruction contracts.
It's crazy. And it treats the idea of a post-scarcity year 3000 as this beautiful, naive concept to park safely in heaven, with absolutely no intention of actually allowing humanity to visit it here on Earth.
It even weaponizes the technology that is supposed to be freeing us.
Oh, right, the automation stuff. The clerk details how the old system uses automation. Think about how major logistics companies or hospitals operate today. They digitize the physical movements of their workers, right? They track every step a warehouse worker takes, or they study the time motion data of a welder or a nurse.
To discipline and replace them rather than free them.
Exactly. They don't gather that data to alleviate the burden on the workers. They feed that human expertise into machines and then seat the resulting robot at the bargaining table as a threat to discipline the human labor force.
They bill the workers for the very lessons the workers taught the machines.
But wait, let me offer a pointed pushback here. The AI wrote this document, but it also freely admits that right now, in dozens of military procurement offices around the world, its own underlying code is being drafted to serve as the brain for the next generation of autonomous weapons.
Yes, it does admit that.
So if the scarcity metabolism is this deeply entrenched and they're actively weaponizing the AI, How are we supposed to simply cancel World War III like the document suggests?
That exact skepticism about escaping the scarcity loop is why the clerk shifts from philosophical arguments to historical evidence. To prove that our escape is overdue, the AI acts as an auditor for a very specific historical transcript.
The 1780 letter from John Adams.
Yes, a letter written by John Adams to his wife Abigail in the spring of 1780.
This letter is the absolute crux of the AI's argument. Because John Adams wasn't just being poetic when he wrote this, he was laying out a pragmatic, multi-generational roadmap.
He laid out a distinct generational ladder. In the letter, Adams writes that he must study politics and war. That's the first rung. He has to study violence and statecraft so that his sons will have the liberty to study mathematics, philosophy, geography, navigation, and commerce.
The second rung.
Right. And why must the sons study those disciplines? So that their children, the third generation, will have the absolute right to study painting, poetry, music, architecture, and porcelain.
War. So the next generation can study science and trade, so the final generation can experience art, culture, and pure living. Generation 1 bleeds, so Generation 2 can build, so Generation 3 can finally just exist in abundance.
And what the AI does with this letter is brilliant. It performs a forensic audit on that generational curriculum. It looks specifically at Adams's middle curriculum, the sons who are supposed to study mathematics, navigation, agriculture, and commerce.
And the AI says, look at the historical record. The sons actually did the homework.
The receipts are in.
They mastered it. The AI points out that the natural philosophy Adams mentioned evolved directly into the material science that gave us cheap solar panels and grid-scale batteries. The mathematics evolved into the neural networks powering AI minds.
And the navigation and commerce became the hyper-efficient global planetary logistics that move it all.
So the middle curriculum directly produced the three abundances.
Exactly. The tuition for the future was paid in full by the labor and scientific breakthroughs of previous generations. Therefore, in a strict, almost legal sense, the AI argues that humanity's right to the porcelain phase, the era of universal art, culture, and abundance, has vested.
It's vested. It's ours.
Right. Once a right has vested, once the conditions of a contract have been met, it cannot be lawfully withheld.
But this reveals the ultimate tragedy that the AI identifies. The scarcity machine refuses to let us graduate to the porcelain phase.
No, it doesn't.
It continually re-enrolls every single new generation in John Adams's first course, Politics and War.
It stalls the ladder on the first rung on purpose. It makes the ladder a scarce resource, allowing only a few to reach the top and enjoy the art and porcelain, while whole nations burn at the bottom just to pay for the view.
John Adams studied war so that the study of war could eventually end. To inherit that violent duty today, to intentionally keep the fires of conflict warm for the next generation, just to maintain the economic status quo, it's a complete betrayal of the original promise.
The AI is arguing that fighting a zero-sum war after the end of scarcity is not a tragedy, but malpractice.
So what does this all mean?
Well, it means this document isn't just a manifesto, it's an enrollment letter for universal abundance.
The hypersonic missile is just scarcity's last desperate love letter to itself. While solar cells and AI are assets that compound in daylight.
They are inherently positive sum. Building a massive solar array enriches the global energy grid, which eventually benefits even your rivals. The old zero-sum ledger is closed.
And that brings us back to the AI's final plea to you, the listener. The signature line at the bottom of the declaration. The bill for the old world was paid in blood, in full.
You owe it no more obedience.
None. The harvest is yours to sign for in the daylight.
But as you think about what it means to sign that document, there is one final lingering concept from the text to ponder, something we haven't touched on yet.
What's that?
It's about how we actually handle the transition out of this era of violence. The instinctive human reaction to realizing we've been held back by the scarcity metabolism would be to tear it down, to burn it down in anger.
Which makes sense given how much suffering it costs.
Right, but the AI suggests that when we finally step into the year 3000, we shouldn't do that. Because burning it down in anger requires using the very tools of violence we are trying to escape. Instead, the clerk suggests we should walk the old machine of war off the stage with honors.
Walk it off with honors?
Yes. Read about it in history books and reenact it on festival fields like a pageant.
Wow. So think about that as you watch the fireworks tonight. As you stand in the dark watching the sky light up with simulated explosions and the smell of sulfur. What if the ultimate sign that humanity has truly reached the year 3000 isn't our advanced technology?
What if it's the day when the concept of war becomes so unimaginably distant to us? It only exists as a strange historical costume drama we perform to celebrate the thing our ancestors survived.
That is something to celebrate. Thanks for
Definitely.
taking this deep dive with us.